Hello everyone, welcome to my summer reading wrap-up. So we're gonna cover the months of June, July, August, what I read. I read a total of 12 books. But other than that, I just wanna say, I got a tripod. And I also got a light, so I'm trying to figure out how all this is gonna work right now. I also just made a little matcha for myself, so if you want to make a little drinky and join me and talk about books, sound off in the comments, you know, what you read this summer. I would love to hear it. And also let me know what you're going to be reading this fall, because it's fall. Despite what it may look like outside for me right now, it is very beautiful, very sunny, very green. But it's fall, guys, and I've got to accept that the seasons are changing. So let me know, guys, like what you're gonna be reading this fall, and if you have any recommendations for me, I would love that. I'm open to it. Let me know. Okay, so let's get started. The very first book that I read is called Into the Drowning Deep. The premise of Into the Drowning Deep, it kind of discusses this very spooky story about how 7 years prior to where like the meat of the novel takes place, this ship called the Atwater sails into the Mariana Trench, and their goal is to film like this mockumentary about sirens, mermaids, these like ancient sea creatures. On the ship, they don't come equipped for meeting like dangerous animals, you know, they only come with their filming gear, their mics, you know, beautiful people for, you know, filming purposes. It's a mockumentary. As time goes on, we kind of see time pass in like different ways, told from the perspective of this character who had a sister that was on the ship of the Atwater at the time of its filming. At first, her sister was like really excited to be there. She was excited to film like this mockumentary, but like the messages she's receiving from her start to get a little more like sinister. And then they find the ship and they see that no people are left behind on the ship, and it was a whole crew, right? And so everybody's gone. The only thing they have left, they had a tape or something like that. So they had footage of what had happened, and it's like really scary. This book was so good. Like, it was so thrilling. I was hooked the whole time through. My partner and I, Abraham, we read it together, and it was so beautiful, guys. We listened to the audiobook, and we also read a little bit physically as well. Well, ebook version, right? We did a little bit of both, but like this book was like amazing. So the reason why we start to learn a lot more about the mermaids, the sirens, is because Victoria, I swear that's her name, Victoria and a bunch of other people, like the different POVs that we start to follow, they are all asked by the film company that had the really terrible first mockumentary voyage. They're like, hey y'all, like let's get on this big boat again and you guys can do some research on the Mariana Trench. And so they do. We learn about their sort of backstories and like the kind of people that they are, which was like pretty cool, I guess. They decide to go on this second voyage, but they're way more prepared, okay? They know that there's something in the trench, okay? And it's coming to get you. They have like all these things that they have in place, like all these defenses in order to protect themselves, and all of the scientists that decide to go on this voyage, it's like a lot of people too. It's like a bigger ship, more prepared, okay? But things start to go awry. Things are starting to happen and people are starting to die. Is it the mermaids? Is it, I don't know. That's all I got. So people start dying, and you know, I wasn't like extremely attached to all of the characters. Like, I thought the name Dr. Jillian Toff was like really nice. I like, it just sounds, it has a nice ring to it. Dr. Jillian Toff. So I liked her character. She was pretty cool. I liked the characters that we were following and the perspectives that they gave us, especially since they were like scientists. Like, it felt like we were uncovering a mystery together. Okay, so it was like mystery, thrilling. We learned a lot about like the biology behind the mermaids, the sirens, and like how they were able to hide themselves for so long, and also, you know, how they were able to lure humans into the water or towards them, you know? And so we learned a lot about that, and that was really, really sick. I would 100% recommend Into the Drowning Deep. The next book that we have is We Hunt the Flame. And this book, oh boy, we follow our main girl. Her name is Zafira, and she lives in this world that kind of has like multiple districts. The different districts are all kind of separated because there's like this forest that's shadowy and scary, spooky. This forest is like gradually shrinking everybody's land, like always. It's constantly happening. Our main character, the reason why she's so cool is because she can go into the forest and come out of the forest again alive, first of all. And I think if you go into the forest, you like lose yourself. You're no longer yourself once you come back. You like probably like see some stuff. Because she's able to go into the forest, she goes hunting and she provides for like her town or her village. She becomes this like legendary hunter, but the only thing is her society thinks very little of women, and so she basically hides her identity, and on top of that, the fact that she's a woman. So nobody knows that this infamous hunter is just, you know, this young girl. So we have two different POVs in this story, and it's also kind of like an enemies to lovers between these two characters that we're following. I just felt like towards the end there, like the climax, I wasn't like super interested. She kind of lost me there. This book is the first one in a duology. I heard that the second one, I think it's called We Free the Stars, and I heard that this one is a lot better, and so you just kind of have to like get through the first one and then read the second one, and that's where the money is. I might just do that because I'll just say that like the first one, it did get kind of confusing towards the end, like what exactly was happening. It just sounded like, oh, we're here, and then we're here, and then we're here, and then this is happening, and this guy is doing this. But it was like, it was hard to keep track of everything. First one wasn't amazing, but I am willing to read the second one. So we'll see how We Free the Stars is. But that is We Hunt the Flame. The next book we have, number 3, is Half a Soul. And OMG, guys, I really liked this book. This was like a Regency romance, but if it was in a land that had fae, you know? And like, you know how we feel about the fae, okay? Like, what did you say? This book, we follow our main character. Her name is Theodora. We're following Theodora, and basically what happens to her is one day she's like a very young child. She's wandering around in the woods and she's having a good time, but then this like fae stops her and he says something crazy. Read the book to find out. But he ends up taking half of her soul, and so Theodora, she can't feel emotions to like the fullest extent. So she can feel like long, like drawn out emotions like dread or something like that, for example, but she can't feel like like shock. Nothing sudden. She talks about that a lot, like how she'll feel things like deep down, like she knows that she cares for, you know, her cousin, who was like a big character in this book. She knows that like people think she's strange and like she doesn't respond the correct way to things all the time. She's aware of that. It also makes her really bold and like really, I don't know, I guess like fearless. We have an enemies to lovers plot line, you know, once again, okay? And we have fae, we have Regency romance and Regency balls and etiquette. And we have, yeah, it's just like a fairy tale. It's really cute. I think it's also a duology. I don't remember what the name of the second book is, so I'll put it on the screen here. I think I might read that one too because I really enjoyed this one. So yeah, that was Half a Soul. The next book, friends, strap in for this one because it was kind of, it was crazy. So this one is The Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. So I know this book is a part of like a collection of other books that kind of have like a similar premise, like The Time I did this. And they're all like romances set in this fantastical world with larger than life characters. This book was like really silly. It starts off, we start off with our main character, Bree. Mind you, Bree's family owns a cheese company. Okay, her family, they make cheese for a living, and her name is Bree, so I just needed to tell you that. Bree, our main character, she kind of gets in this little scuffle with this like guy who's like being all nasty and whatnot to her. She's like, leave me alone, and he's like, no, and they go back and forth for a second, and she ends up chucking something at him. He thinks it's a drink, but he ducks and ends up hitting another guy, which is our love interest. His name is Felix. And so it ends up hitting him, and he instantly falls in love with her. So, like I said, this book is very silly. It has larger than life characters. For example, her best friend's name is Cinnamon. I will say, I was reading this book on my Kindle in public, and I was on the train, and I was like, I didn't want anybody to see because the writer was getting a little freaky. In my opinion, I thought it was pretty spicy. So it was fun though. You know, it was silly, goofy. I enjoyed it a lot. So I would say, why not? You know, give it a try. And once again, there are like a few others in this series. I think this is like the second one. You have a whole collection. You could read about the time somebody did something crazy to somebody. So yeah. Enjoy the time I got drunk and needed a love potion at a werewolf. So the next book that I read is Take a Hint, Dani Brown. And this book was really, really good. I loved it because I also read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by the same author. It's like in a trilogy, and it's about 3 different sisters. The first one is Chloe Brown, and then the second one is obviously Dani Brown. The third one is Eve, I'm pretty sure. It follows their love stories. And yeah, so this is a romance novel. It's got like fake dating, an intellectual bisexual black woman, great banter. Our main character, Dani Brown, she is a very interesting character. She is a PhD student. She's in the process of preparing for like this really big presentation that she's very excited about. But the one thing that she sort of struggles with throughout the book is her distancing herself from other people and not getting attached to people in a romantic way. In the very beginning of the book, she asks the universe, she asks a goddess if she would supply her with the most perfect friends with benefits. And you know who lands in her lap? Not literally. You know who lands in her lap? This guy who she kind of has a thing for. His name is Saphir, and he's the security guard at the university she's teaching at. So one day when she doesn't check her email, she doesn't know that there's like a practice fire drill, and she gets stuck in the elevator because you're not supposed to take an elevator during a fire. She gets stuck in the elevator and she tries to get out, but she cannot. And Saphir, being the hunk that he is, he comes over and he pries the doors open and he carries her out all majestically, and all of the college students, they see it, and of course the first thing they do is they record it. After that, hashtag starts to trend, and this video of him carrying her out of the building, bridal style, right? After this hashtag starts trending, people are like, wait, are they dating? And this hashtag kind of starts to benefit both the characters in their different ways. Because of that, they're like, maybe we should fake date. So we have a fake dating trope. We have a bunch of like really silly but very, very interesting characters, great banter, dual POV. Like we learn a lot about these 2 characters, and I just feel like they're actually a really, really good match. So I definitely recommend that you guys read Take a Hint, Dani Brown. All right, friends, so for the next books, I actually have a few physical copies. So let's talk about these ones. The next one I have is Aquicorn, Cove. This one is like a very sweet graphic novel about our main character. Her name is Lana, and she's from this very small coastal village. That's her hometown. The point where we're following her is right after a storm has happened. Lana no longer lives in this small coastal town. She lives in like a bigger city with her father. But after this storm happens, they decide to go back to help, you know, the people that live in the town rebuild and, you know, put everything back together after this natural disaster has happened. One of the characters being her aunt. Illustrations are just really beautiful in this graphic novel. This is the very first page. You can see during the process of rebuilding everything in this town, Lana ends up finding this very tiny little baby Aquicorn, which is kind of like a seahorse, I guess, like a magical seahorse. He is asleep and she decides to care for him until he can be released back into the ocean. We learn a lot about like these magical creatures, a lot about coral reefs and the ocean itself, overfishing, stuff like that, and how all of that affects the ocean itself. Obviously this book looks like it's for young children, but I thought it was really sweet. I enjoyed reading it. At the very back of the book, it tells you a little bit more information about what are coral reefs, where you can find coral reefs, what causes damage of them, how to stop the damage. Yeah, like it was just very sweet. It was a very cute story. And the illustrations are really beautiful. I enjoyed it, and I got this one at the Strand. I don't ever really pick up graphic novels, but when I saw this cover, I was like, and so I had to. So yeah, that's Aquicorn Cove. The next book that I read is Ordinary Monsters. This book was, I mean, hey, it's really hefty. It has about 658 pages. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but that is a lot. I will say that I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed all of the characters that we follow. We have two mainly, Charlie and Marlo, and they were so cute. These two characters are in a world that has magic, but I don't think that it's known to majority of the world, you know? Like I feel like it's kind of, oh yeah, like we know that exists, but they're different, you know? So these children kind of have tragic lives. It's set in the late 1800s. We see a lot of that imagery too in this magical setting. The first main character, Charlie, he's a young mixed race kid. He's black and white, and he lives in the deep South, Mississippi during this time, and his talent or ability is that he's able to heal himself very quickly. And it's not so much something that he does himself, it just happens to him. We learn about his ability in that way and just how like his body heals itself and how he can use that to his advantage. He has other abilities that he learns about later on. That part of the story is kind of hard to read, so you know, just be aware of that imagery of the deep South. We also have another young boy too. His name is Marlo. He's maybe like 6. He's very young. He lives in London. He's found by a young woman on a train car with who appears to be his mother, deceased, in the train car with him. The person that finds him, I can't remember her name at the time, she takes him in and takes care of him. Both of our main characters in this book are always kind of like wondering, you know, where they came from, their family members, their powers and their abilities tie into that a lot. There's kind of like a mystery in that sense. We meet a lot more of other characters who have abilities too. We have like this sort of magical school plotline that comes in later. There's a lot of things that happen in this book, so it's kind of hard to explain. I will say that we have multiple POVs in this book too, so we see a lot of different interactions that these characters have with one another. They felt pretty real. Charlie and Marlo's relationship was really what kept me reading because it was so heartwarming and I just loved their dynamic together. It's very suspenseful, you know, there's like this evil that's like constantly encroaching, always looming in the background, like we're always running away from this evil. This book is very long. It was long-winded. I think it definitely could have been significantly shorter, but I would say this book isn't very summery. Maybe read it in the fall. You can definitely tell that there's going to be multiple books that come out. I think it's gonna be 3 in total. I think the second one just came out for this book too, and I think there's gonna be 3 in total. Just be wary that there's a lot of things that do happen, but sometimes he's just saying a lot and you're like, okay, let's wrap it up, you know? If you're looking for like found family sort of vibes, multiple POVs, very sweet relationships, a magical school, that's what's in store for you if you read this book. So that's Ordinary Monsters. The next book is Ruthless Vows. This book is the sequel to Divine Rivals, which I read back in February. Basically, if you haven't read that book, we're following Iris Winnow and Roman Kitt, and they're both journalists that work at the same publishing company is what you would call it. They're both kind of competing for the same position. And so that's how we get like that rivalry and that enemies to lovers. Overall, there's magic in this world, but in the sense that a grocery store has moving objects, or like a tea shop that the tea never gets cold. It's magic in that sense. Not magical individuals, but the world feels magical. In that novel, we do learn about there's war that's happening between these 2 gods, and that is not the biggest part of that novel. It's kind of the subplot to the romance. We learn more about that war in this book. I liked it, but the thing is, I wanted more of the 2 main characters together, because that is not really the case in this one. This one is more about the war, and I knew that was going to be more important in the second one because it was kind of like vaguely there in the first one. So I knew it was going to be like at the forefront in this one. It was just kind of too much. You know, the 2 main characters are not together a lot in the second one, which, you know, is okay. I didn't, like I said, I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I liked learning about the war and whatnot. But I will say, the main villain, I was like, this guy is kind of dumb. The thing is, like, the main villain, I just felt like it was so easy to trick him. Everybody was not on his side. Like, everybody was against this guy. When bad things happened that were like clearly an internal job, like he was like, this was an internal job, or like he didn't even realize that it was an internal job right off the bat. I needed more from the villain. I needed him to be scarier and smarter. I'm just saying. Iris Winnow and Roman Kitt, I still love them. If you really like the idea of enemies to lovers, a lot of letters, magical typewriters, gods, war, check it out. If you haven't read it, it's very popular, so you might have read it already, but you know what? Check it out if you want to. But yeah, that was Ruthless Vows. All right, friends, so the next one is Assassin's Blade. The Assassin's Blade. In this one, we're following Celaena Sardothien, but this book is a prequel to everything that happens in Throne of Glass. I know that the order of which books you should read, you know, people say, oh, read this book third, read this book second, whatever, right? It's a prequel, so I was like, I'm just gonna read this one first, right? And so I bought this one, and at first I was kind of like, and I care why? But you know what? I really like this actually. Assassin's Blade is like a collection of a few different short stories that kind of explain who Celaena Sardothien is. So my light died, and so I've been gone for a little while, if you can tell. Sorry. So I'm just gonna talk about this book for like the 3rd time, but it's okay. I mean, if you read fantasy, you've probably heard of this series. This is the prequel to Throne of Glass. So we're talking about Celaena Sardothien in person she is and how she came to be through a few different short stories. It's 5 short stories in total, and I liked all of them. I remember being sort of iffy about the first one, and I was like, I don't know if I am gonna care about these characters. After I read the following stories that came after, I was like, this is really good, you know, and I really like Celaena Sardothien. At the end of each story, she always ends up making a decision that you don't necessarily like expect an assassin to make. That leads me to tell you that Celaena Sardothien, throughout this whole series of Throne of Glass, I'm assuming we're going to follow her journey as one of the most prolific, most well-known assassin. And she is an interesting character because she is basically the heir to the Assassins Guild in this kingdom. She has been named heir by King of the Assassins. His name is Arabin Hamel, I think is his name. He is a very cruel man, of course. I mean, you know, that's what you would expect. I liked that throughout Celaena's different stories, she's always kind of making a decision that's maybe not in like her best interest because she like really cares about the people that are around her. I liked that she, you know, kept doing that. It was kind of, it felt like Robin Hood a little bit. I also thought it was really cool that she was like a girly girl, you know, like she really liked makeup and doing her hair, and she really loved like expensive, lavish things. She wants to have those things in her life and they're important to her. And at the end, I knew what was gonna happen, which is fine because it still destroyed me. I was still very upset. Like I knew it was coming, and then when it did, I was like, ugh. I knew it was gonna happen, but I just really didn't want it to because it's sad. I say, why not read this one first? It is a prequel. I am very excited to continue this series. I really like Celaena. I'm gonna pick up Throne of Glass soon, and I'll let you guys know what I think in the future, but yeah, definitely I do recommend The Assassin's Blade. The next one is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. And guys, look at this cover. It is so beautiful. Not only is the cover really beautiful, but the imagery that the author uses within the novel is really, really stunning. In the very beginning, we learn about our main character. Her name is Mina. From the very first page, this book has like a lot of action, I would say. Our main character, Mina, she lives in a coastal village. Her village and also surrounding towns and villages, they all believe that in order to appease the sea god, you have to sacrifice a young woman every single year. We follow Mina right before another ceremony is about to occur, and she is like running to this ship and swimming towards it, and she gets on the ship and she sees that her brother June, and then also this really beautiful girl that's from her village, her name is Shimchung, and she is the girl that is about to be sacrificed to the sea god. Mina realizes that June is in love with Shimchung. I don't know if she realizes in that moment that he's in love with Shimchung or she knew before. She probably had an inkling, you know? But so she realizes that her brother is really in love with this woman because he's not supposed to be there on the ship. There's supposed to be no guards, nobody. It's just like the girl and, you know, the people that are taking her to the ceremony, the sacrifice. While they're there, Mina decides last minute to sacrifice herself instead of Shimchung. Immediately from the get-go, I really liked Mina because I was like, wow, she's a hero, you know? Like, she made that decision in a split second. From there, we follow Mina in the spirit world, and the imagery of like the spirit world and stuff was really, really cool, and the way that the author described it was stunning, and I really enjoyed those aspects. All of the smells and the flavors she was describing and the atmosphere, it was really, really nice. And it was amazing. Recently, I really like books that are inspired by fairy tales, and this one is actually inspired by like Korean mythology. I would definitely recommend The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea if you love fairy tales. It was really, really good. So yeah. The next book I have is Happy Place. I heard so much about it when it first came out and everybody was hyping it up, but I was like, I need to read all of her other books first. But you know what? I have read Beach Read, Book Lovers, and People We Meet on Vacation, and I would say my favorites are Beach Read and Happy Place. Now we're following our main character, Harriet. She has this amazing friend group, and they love to go to this cottage that's in Maine that one of the characters, her father, owns. They've been doing that since university when they all met. And our main character, Harriet, during university, she fell in love with this guy, Win. We switch timelines. We go back during her happy place. So Harriet's happy place is in Maine. Harriet, when she's going through tough things in like her real life, she goes back to her happy place in her mind. She thinks about that place and all those amazing memories and all those people that she's really close with. And she remembers them, all those good times when she's, you know, struggling with all of the things that you learn about in this book. Basically, the point where we're following these characters is like way in the future. It's been like, I think like 8 years, and they're all gathering to this happy place once again for one of their little vacations. But this time things are a little bit different because Wynne and Harriet are no longer together and they have not told anybody about it, not even their parents. And it's been about 6 months since they've been broken up and they haven't communicated with anyone that they're no longer together. And so everybody thinks they're together and they just kind of have to pretend. So we got like this like fake dating. We have a lot of banter. I mean, it's Emily Henry, forced proximity, found family too. But in actuality, we're talking about a lot of serious topics too, like being miserable at, you know, your job, and grief and growing up and growing apart from people. There was a lot of really great quotes in this book, and towards the end there I literally had to start underlining because I was like, this is so good, and she just knows how to convey very specific feelings, if that makes any sense. I really think that this is a really spectacular book. You know, like, it's not perfect, of course. I think that Harriet kind of started a lot of the conversations, but you know what, I really enjoyed it, and I think that if you want a romance novel that also features a lot of tension with like friendship groups, that's what this book was really about, on top of romance. I would definitely say give Happy Place a try if you like how that sounds. Okay guys, last one I have for you today that I read is Just for the Summer. And I read this book because I saw a lot of hype about it online. There was a lot of buzz. And I saw the cover, this cover everywhere, dude. I had to know what was going on. I liked the premise. It was very silly, very camp. The book literally starts off with a Reddit thread of, am I the asshole? And basically the love interest, he posts a Reddit post that says, am I the asshole for blah blah blah? You know, he explains his whole story, and he also mentions within the Reddit post that every time he dates somebody and breaks up with them, they always find like the love of their life right after. And our main girl, Emma, I think it's her name, she also has the same problem. And so she reaches out to him, she like DMs him and is like, oh, I have the same problem, this always happens to me. And then they start messaging back and forth. After that, they decide to date, break up, and then hopefully break the curse that they obviously both have. The romance was very like instant, you know, insta-lovey. I wasn't obsessed with this book, but I did really like how there was this discussion of mental illness and also familial struggles. All that stuff was like really interesting, but I would say personally I was more interested in the love interest and like he was just so nice and so kind. Him and his family, like I was more interested in their storyline rather than the romance. I just feel like the romance didn't really work. Like in real life, I feel like these people would just like not work out together. I just don't think it would happen. I feel like that's why it was kind of hard for me to believe it. I was like, these people do not gel very well. And also, no hate to my millennials, okay? But this book was very millennial. There was one time where they literally said murder mittens. And I was like, that is so millennial. And I was like, bruh. Which, like I said, not inherently a bad thing, but if you're a millennial, you might like this book. So to describe this book, I would say it's like online, meet cute, found family. That was like what Just for the Summer was, but the cover is deceiving, you know? I thought it was gonna be silly and fun, like the whole way through, but she kind of got you there. If that sounds fun to you, I would say read Just for the Summer. Next summer though. Okay guys, so I will just throw in, if you want to know what I'm reading right now, I'm reading Lore Olympus. It's like a retelling of Persephone and Hades, their story, in graphic novel format, and I love it. I'm eating it up, but I don't have like a lot of thoughts yet. I'll get back to you on it here soon, but I'm reading that right now. And I also, let me find it actually. I went and I got it. This, 5 Broken Blades. I don't have a lot of thoughts yet. I'm literally on page 53. Okay, so nothing up here yet about it, but guys, look at this, these sprayed edges. This is very cool. I like this a lot. I'm excited to see what this is about. I've seen a lot of hype about this too. So I'm gonna read this and I'm gonna finish Lore Olympus. That's how I'm gonna wrap up my summer. So share with me like what you read this summer. I would love to hear about it, and any recommendations for fall. Maybe we'll get into that next time. But let me know how your summer was in general. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!